What's going on? Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show, DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle, that would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter, at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show. We're taking a look towards some racing coming up on Saturday afternoon, March the 17th. We're going to focus mainly on the fillies and mares for this show, but we'll start things off as we do for most of these shows this time of year, talking about the three-year-olds. If you check this thing out, podcast version, you've got YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, and I would encourage anyone to head over to youtube.com, take a look at the Daily Racing Forum's YouTube channel. Plenty of good stuff, everything we upload from video.drf.com, so you've got a number of ways to check things out as far as all of our content is concerned. Made mention that we'll take a look at a couple of filly and mare races, including the only grade one of the weekend, that being the Santa Margarita. But let's start off with the Glamour division, the three-year-old males at this point. Three-year-old fillies, they're starting to sort themselves out. And I think you can say the same after a little while. You can start to say the same about the three-year-old males, where for the first handful of weeks of 2018, it looked like it was just going to be a revolving door. And we got a little bit of that this past weekend, but I don't think it was quite as severe as it has been in weeks prior, because there was one race that really felt like it could shut the door on the nonsense and shut the door on, you know, the pretenders and these sort of phony contenders from showing up. There was one race, the San Felipe, that it looked like on paper you had the two of the top five, let's say, three-year-olds in training, in Bolt Thoro and McKenzie. And if one of them could do what they were supposed to do, we'd be in okay shape. If both of them could do something similar or close to what they're capable of, really, order would be restored in a pretty significant way. Mike Watchmaker brought it up, talking about his new Watchmaker watch, where he said kind of the same thing. It felt like maybe this weekend was an opportunity to get things locked up, and certainly that's exactly how it played out. Here's Michael Ronan with the stretch run of last weekend's San Felipe.
Great purpose at the top of the stretch, and Bolt Thoro moves up alongside of McKenzie, and they're racing tightly. They were brushing in upper stretch. McKenzie fights back underneath Bolt Thoro. The San Felipe living up to its billing. A 16th left to go. McKenzie on the inside, and Bolt Thoro in a spine-tingling spectacle at the Great Race Place. Bolt Thoro, McKenzie, they hit the line. McKenzie.
Now, everyone is well aware of how everything shook down with the disqualification. If you want a full recap, head on over the Matt Bernier Show, the recap edition. That's up on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube channel, as well as video.drf.com. I've already explained what I feel about the DQ and all that kind of stuff. The good news, the good takeaway from that race is those top two threw it down, and it looks like they are right now maybe not head and shoulders above everyone else, but they are certainly a head above everyone else. And we'll find out maybe this weekend with races like the Jeff Ruby Stakes, as well as the Rebel down at Oaklawn Park. Maybe we'll get some other horses that can jump up in a big way. But those two horses, they at least solidified themselves as the two horses to beat right now, ahead of Good Magic, ahead of Solomini. Again, we'll find out what he does in the Rebel this weekend. But it was at least nice to see things settle down a little bit and go from helter-skelter to take a deep breath. We're coming back in the right direction. Class prevailed. The best horses got the job done. Whichever order you believe they should have run in, 1, 2, 2, 1. Doesn't matter. The idea is they at least delivered. Now, on the flip side, you had the Tampa Bay Derby, where I happen to be down there. Everyone down there at Tampa Bay Downs, tremendous job. Thank you for coming out, having some fun. The weather held off. And I thought Vino Rosso was ready to take that step up to the upper echelon. Maybe not that top cream of the crop, but at least put himself in a position to say, you know what, I'm one of the top 10 best three-year-olds. Flame Away is still one of the more underappreciated three-year-olds that we have. I love that he just shows up, runs his race. Sure, maybe he's not the most talented horse naturally, but there's clearly ability there, and there's desire more so than anything. He wants to beat you, as opposed to some of these other horses that they get into a fight and they just wilt. But we got kind of a result that I certainly didn't anticipate, and based on the tote board and the betting public, they certainly didn't anticipate it either. Quip gets the job done. Here's Richard Grunder with the stretch run.
Swings wide for the drive as they straighten away for home. World of Trouble and Quip on the outside. They're locked in battle. Flame Away racing erratically down to the wire. World of Trouble along the rail and Quip on the outside. They're still heads apart. Quip is now going the better of the two, and Flame Away flying on late. getting up for second.
So now you throw another horse's name into the ring. Now this race happened probably about 20 minutes before the San Felipe. And I'm not going to go over the Gotham here in this show just simply because it was a one-turn mile, and I'm still unsure what to make of that as far as a proper Derby prep is concerned. But between the Tampa Bay Derby and the San Felipe, Tampa Bay Derby happened, and I'm thinking we are in deep water because none of these favorites are doing what they're supposed to do, and we keep getting these brand new faces that show up, and they deliver a nice performance, but I don't know if it was legitimate, where it came from, yada, yada, yada. The San Felipe came back and kind of throttled it back and got us back to reality, but I think Quip is a fascinating horse because I talked about it a little bit in the recap edition. Pedigree-wise, I think he's okay. He looked like he was a stone-cold runner. He's lightly raced. He's certainly taken a step forward from 2 to 3. He galloped out quite strong. I know he had a pretty good trip, all things considered. He sat off of a horse that probably doesn't want to go that far in World of Trouble, but I thought it was a legitimate effort, and he got a pretty solid Beyer speed figure. So he's going to be one that going forward we're going to have to keep an eye on because he's already basically locked up a spot in the starting gate for the first Saturday in May in the Kentucky Derby. But the bigger thing is just to see if there's another step from this first race to his second race as a 3-year-old, wherever that final prep is. You got to start looking at Quip and say, you know what, maybe he's a legitimate threat for a race like the Run for the Roses. We'll find out. But it felt like, okay, Saturday, the preps are done. They're in the back in the rearview mirror. Now we can start to go forward. Sunday offered all of us an interesting and an exciting prospect from Bob Baffert's barn. Everyone knew they were calling it the Justified Derby because this was his second lifetime start, first time against winners, first time 2 turns, first time in a wet track. A lot of things thrown at him, and he was bet down to 1 to 20. And I mean, he's the kind of horse that I always just prove to me. You look fantastic in your career debut, great, but you were bet down to 2 to 5 or 3 to 5, whatever it was. You were supposed to do that. Now, maybe not a stellar field. Shiver Me Timbers, he's an okay horse, but he's no great shakes. He still needed to prove that he belonged against better and he could handle better company. And we were treated to this performance, Michael Rono with the call.
Timbers. They swing for home, and it's Justified by 4. Shiver Me Timbers second. Calyx Man on the inside is next. Justify coming past the 8th pole would have to race in outer space to feel less pressure. He's not yet battle-hardened, but just who is the most talented 3-year-old to race this weekend? Justify, a colt of limitless potential, wins by 6 lengths from a Shiver.
Now, Justify all of a sudden becomes one of the horses that people have on their short list as far as Derby contenders is concerned. Now, having looked at this, right now this is being recorded on March the 15th. It'll be up tomorrow, March 16th, live at noon. There's a piece of me that looks at it and says, a horse that's run twice is arguably the favorite for the Kentucky Derby. I don't know if that's a good thing for this group as a whole. And I'm always the one saying, let's wait. It's much too early to just throw a blanket statement for better or for worse over a group of horses that are young, they're developing, they're still figuring things out. But it reminds me, until what we saw in the San Felipe, and who knows what Justify will end up being. But until the San Felipe result, this group reminded me a lot of the 3-year-old fillies from 2 years ago, not this most recent year where you had Abel Tasman and Elate and Paradise Woods and Unique Bella and all those very, very talented fillies. 2 years ago, when every single Grade 1 race that came rolling through, it was just taking turns. Next. And almost universally, everyone looked at that group of fillies and said, not that good. We'll find out. Again, we got the Rebel on Saturday. Maybe things will continue to settle down. Solomini makes his return. Magnum Moon tries Graded Stakes Company for the first time. You've got other talented runners in there as well. We'll find out if we can get another formful result. And I feel like I'm going against everything in my body, saying I want form. I want a formful result, because the more chaos ensues, the more I can envision myself down the road saying, I don't think any of them are any good, and I'm just going to take a stab with someone. The talent right now, I think, is there, but these boys still need to figure some things out. The Rebel is going to be an important race, obviously leading into the Arkansas Derby, but as a whole for the 3-year-olds, because the timing of this, now we're getting into crunch time. You're only 2 weeks away from the Florida Derby. You're 3 weeks away from the Wood, the Santa Anita Derby, the Bluegrass. So we're really getting down to it. And to this point, to say that there are 3 horses that really feel like they have brought their A game, and one of them happens to be a horse that's only run twice in his career, that's a little bit of an unsured or a disheartening sort of statement at this point. We'll find out. Again, a lot of things can happen between now and those final round of preps, and certainly before the first Saturday in May. But right now, I'm a little bit, I don't know where we are. There's 3 horses that look really strong, and then there's everybody else that sort of needs to figure things out. I'm not saying that they can't, but they got to do a little bit better here as we get into this final round of Derby preps. The Rebel, I'm not going to touch on that here on this show. You can wait if you're watching live. It will be in-depth on this week's edition of Out of the Gate, and you'll obviously have the DRF Bets Race of the Day, which you can go over to the YouTube channel for the Daily Racing Form and find that and all sorts of other graded stakes previews. I told you at the top we're going to focus on the fillies and mares this weekend. We're going to do that. Let's dive into the first and only Grade 1 of the weekend, the Santa Margarita. Only Grade 1 of the weekend, the Santa Margarita, 1.1 miles on the main track out at the Great Race Place, Santa Anita Park. This is the field on the far right side. If you're new to the show, that is my value line. It's not a morning line. It's what I think represents fair odds from a win standpoint on each one of these fillies and mares. Unique Bella develops a cough. She misses the race. All of a sudden, the old sort of saying is true. When the cat's away, the mice will play. Here we are. These girls are not quite as talented as Unique Bella, but they all have some interesting pieces to consider here. In post position order, the number 1 is La Force for Paddy Gallagher. Mike Smith has them out. Figures to be forwardly placed, maybe sitting just off of a target or two. I think she's interesting. The run 2 starts back in the La Cañada, the best race of her career. Bit of a blanket finish, not quite as good as Mopatism or Mended on that given day. The most recent run, she gets it done in a non-winners of 1, other than, for what it's worth, that was only her second lifetime victory from 17 lifetime starts. I made her 7-1. The number 2 is Turkish Tabby. 1 of 2 in here for Jerry Hollendorfer. Going second off the bench off of a long, considerable layoff. I think that could be a positive. But having said that, according to Timeform US, she was on a track up at Golden Gate in her return effort that was intensely speed-friendly. She was on the front end. She did set fast fractions, but she could not hang on. And also, the winner that day that beat her by a nose, Mon Petit, came back to earn a 78 buyer in her next start. I think she's overmatched 32-1. Number 3 is Mended. Just spoke about her, talking about Mopatism and La Force. Mended was out there, set some soft fractions in that La Cañada toward the inside on a day where I thought inside did very well on the main track at Santa Anita. Couldn't get the job done. And it's very similar sort of running style or running line to Turkish Tabby. I think she's okay only. I don't like her in here, 24-1. The number 4 is Dalceros. This is an interesting runner for Carla Gaines. On paper, incredibly slow. Going to need to step the game up in a big way. Also a little bit concerned about the running style. Figure to have a number of horses that want to be forwardly placed. You look at the 2 victories, both of them in sort of gate-to-wire-ish fashion. I will say that run 2 starts back. She was wide every step of the way, and I thought it was better than looks. Still don't love her here, 49-1. The number 5 is Mistress of the Night for Richard Baltas. Kent DeSormo, a filly that I've always had a bit of a thing for. I think there's some talent here. Doesn't look like she's getting all that much better or all that much faster throughout her career in 12 lifetime starts, but she is coming into this on the heels of a victory and a non-winners of 2, other than going 2 turns. I made her 16-1. The big thing for me with Mistress of the Night, I would love to see her go shorter. I think her game is sprinting as a sort of off-the-pace, late closing sprinter, 7/8 of a mile. That's just my opinion. I love the way that she broke her maiden. I know it was an off-the-turf race, but that was back in January of last year. I thought she was awesome that day. Then they tried the Santa Paula. Didn't work out, where you ran into Union Strike and Selcourt. We know what Selcourt has turned into. And then they've tried to go longer with her, and when they sprinted her again, she was going down the hill. I think she could be a really nice off-the-pace, come from sort of the back of the pack, one-turn type of horse. 7/8 of a mile, 6.5 furlongs. Just my 2 cents. Mistress of the Night, 16-1. The number 6 is Majestic Heat for Richard Mandella. This has been a positive move for Mandella, going sprint to route in graded stakes races over the past 3 years. He's 3 for 8 with a 7.72 ROI. This filly, or this mare, has done that successfully in the past. The problem I have is, I said it in the recap edition when we talked about the Spring Fever, I think she's just off form right now. I made her 6-1. On paper, she's going to be shorter than that. She might be the second choice in this race. She can win. She has races that are fast enough. I just think she is going the wrong direction. I think she needs a break again. 6-1, Majestic Heat. The number 7 is an interesting horse, Bishop's Pond, for Jason Service, coming in from the East Coast. Usually east going west on dirt. Not necessarily a recipe for success. East going west on turf is usually when we see those sort of brilliant performances. Bishop's Pond figures to be forwardly placed. She has shown way back. You got to go a number of years back now that she can come from slightly off of it. But I thought that most recent run in 38 Go was decent enough. Third place finisher, Miss Inclusive, came back to win next out with an 86. Sixth place finisher, a next out winner with a 78 buyer. I don't think she's impossible in here. I think she is a little bit overmatched. Made her 6-1. The number 8 is Eccentric Spinster, excuse me. Another Jerry Hollendorfer runner in here. The most recent run ahead behind Turkish Tabby. If I spoke and said that I don't think Turkish Tabby is good enough, I don't think Eccentric Spinster is good enough. Made her 24-1. Mopetism, one of my favorite horses. I've made her 3-1. She's going to be your favorite come post time. She was beaten by a country mile by Unique Bella in that most recent run in the Santa Maria. The La Cañada was a gutsy effort. She popped back to her left lead late. Now, perhaps there are some distance concerns. Mile on an eighth is a game changer for many of these girls. They may or may not want to go this far. I still think she may just be better than everyone else. Having said that, she's the kind of horse that I love betting at 6, 7, 8 to 1. Don't love betting her at 2, 3, 3.5 to 1. I think she's going to be in that 2 to 1, 5 to 2 range. I've made her 3 to 1. The number 9, Mopetism. And the number 10 is Fault for Phil D'Amato. Franco takes the mount here. This is an interesting mare simply because she's done most of her damage on turf. She's only tried dirt twice in her career. Once was on a wet track. She's 3 for 12 on turf. Her most recent run was a victory in the Buena Vista, going a mile on the turf. If this thing comes into a stamina test, perhaps she's the one that can take advantage. I'm just very, very leery of horses coming from way off of it on dirt, particularly at Santa Anita. But if you're looking for a fresh face, perhaps it is her. I've made her 5 to 1. That leads us to the pick and the play for this race, the Grade 1 Santa Margarita. I look at this race and say the pick for me, and we're going to go take a look right now at the La Cañada. I liked Mopetism. I think that she's a nice filly. I think she just goes out there, runs her race. Sometimes it's good enough. Sometimes it's not. Again, the La Cañada, she popped back to her left lead, but I like that she finished determinedly. I thought it was a good enough effort. If she runs that at least makes her a legitimate contender. If she takes a slight step forward to that mid-90 number that she earned in Santa Maria, she's strictly the horse to beat because there aren't many other girls in this race that can run a mid-90. Having said all that, she's my pick. I don't have a play in this race because I don't know that I trust any of them necessarily at 9 furlongs. And Mopetism just feels like she's going to be an underlay as opposed to what I think the odds should be. Again, I made her 3 to 1. I think she goes off in that 2 to 1, 5 to 2 range. So we'll find out what happens. Mopetism is my pick in the Grade 1 Santa Margarita. Let's shift our attention to Oaklawn Park. Everyone's going to be focused on the Rebel, but you've got a big, big race in the Azeri leading in to next month's Apple Blossom. Let's take a look at that. The local prep for the big one next month at Oaklawn Park, the Apple Blossom. This is the Grade 2 Azeri. It's not a large field, a field of 8 signed on. In post position order, the number 1 is Actress for Jason Service. Service could have a big weekend here. I think this filly is very, very talented. If you think that the Comely is something that she could approach here as a 4-year-old, she's going to be a force. The Houston Ladies Classic, a little bit of a disappointment. I made her 4 to 1, but in many ways, I think she might be the horse to beat. She's going to come down from those odds. She won't sniff 4 to 1. If she does, I think there's probably a problem. And the number 2 is Farrell. Farrell for Wayne Catalano. She was a nice sort of early-ish 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and she just hasn't gotten any better. I know she won the Pippin 2 starts back. I know she won the Choluki 3 starts back. She was dreadful considering the other crazy pace in that Bayakoa. I don't know that I want to totally hold it against her, but at the same time, I'm not trying to be charitable too much here. Made her 49 to 1. I don't like her. The number 3, Terra Promesa, I made her 10 to 1. She's a filly that at this point in her career, she's a mare. She probably wants to be forwardly placed. I thought it was interesting that she made up as much ground as she did in that Bayakoa most recently, but she was no match for Streamline. You're going to get Streamline again here in this spot, and I have to be honest, the Bayakoa as a whole, not really loving it. I made her 10 to 1. Number 4 is Tiger Moth for Brad Cox. Throw out Brad Cox at your own risk. Florent Giroux has the mount here. She got the job done in the Houston Ladies Classic at almost 20 to 1. Came from off the pace. That was a race that I felt like the last move was the winning move. We'll dive into that much more in a little bit. Cox is red hot, 30% down at Oaklawn Park. If they throw it down early, you know that Tiger Moth is going to be running late. Again, I made her 10 to 1. The number 5 is Sandy Surprise coming in for Doug O'Neill. This is a horse that she has actually been here at Oaklawn Park since the middle of February. She ran in that Houston Ladies Classic. She finished 4th. Beaten by a length and a half. Thought it was a very good effort, all things considered. She's run well enough on the dirt in route races that she might slip through the cracks. It might be a decent price. I made her 6-1, and I think I'm going to get every bit of that. The number 6 is Streamline. Just spoke about her. Gary Stevens retains the mount. Got the job done in the Grade 3 Bayakoa most recently. She loves Oaklawn Park. This distance is beautiful for her. She's never been out of the money from 12 lifetime starts at the distance. I think she makes some sense. The problem is, you know what you're going to get. If you think an 85 Beyer is good enough to win this race, she makes all the sense in the world. If you think it's going to take a 90, she's eclipsed that number, I believe, once in her career. I don't know that I want to be betting on it. And also keep in mind, again, this is nothing more than a race to get to the Apple Blossom. So perhaps she is not 100%. Perhaps some of these other fillies and mares are not 100%. It'll be interesting to see what you get here. Streamline, I made her 10-1. The number 7 is Martini Glass, coming in off of a victory in the Royal Delta down at Gulfstream Park. She defeated Lewis Bay. Verve's Tail earned a 95 Beyer doing so. Paco Lopez retains the mount for Keith Nations. She makes a lot of sense. I thought she ran just fine in that Houston Ladies Classic 2 starts back. And that really, this race boils down to more or less 2 races that you need to make a call on. The Houston Ladies Classic as well as the Bayakoa. Depending on how you think of the form and how those races were run, you're very likely to pull an opinion from there. I made Martini Glass 4-1. If you don't pull an opinion from either one of those races, you're left with the number 8 Blue Prize for Nacho Correas. First start since November of last year. Got the job done in the Fall City Handicap. Won for fun, won by 8.5 lengths. Good on Dan Illman. He liked her that day. Paid $8 in here. Defeated Tiger Moth by the length of the stretch. All she did was come back to win that Houston Ladies Classic with a 93 Beyer. She makes a lot of sense. She has a little bit of seconditis, but perhaps she got over that in that most recent run. I made her 5-1. Pick and play time. The pick for me, this has been a filly that I've been waiting to come back for some time. Perhaps she's just not as good as the other girls in here. But Sandy Surprise, I think there are excuses for each of the past 2. We're going to look right now at the Houston Ladies Classic. Remember at the top, I said that I thought the last move was the winning move. She made the first move into that pace, a pace that just fell apart. It wasn't overly fast, but the pace just completely collapsed. I thought she stayed on really game, considering she was only beaten by a length and a half. You see that those margins, a little bit of a blanket finish. I thought she ran tremendously that day, earned that 90 Beyer. 2 starts back in the La Cañada. She was wider than wide on a day when I thought Inside did very well. If you draw a line, or at least say, okay, she has excuses for each of the past 2 races, then you go 3 starts back, and all you're left with is an 87 Beyer winning the Zia Park Oaks, and she won by 4 3/4. She was never a loser in that race. I think she continues to improve, and I think she's better than each of those past 2 races would suggest. Flavian Pratt takes them out. He's in town to ride Solomini. I think you're going to get a giant number on her. And that, to me, ultimately leads to what the play is for this one. Very rarely do you get a horse that you really like that's going to offer a big number. I shouldn't say a big number. A fair number, a nice square number. I think this could be an instance. Again, she might not be good enough, but I'm willing to gamble on it. This is going to be one of those where we'll bump up the win bet a little bit again. These are nothing more than placeholders. Play at your own sort of comfort level. I'll play $50 to win on Sandy Surprise at 6-1 or better. I think she may even be higher than that. I believe she's double digits on the morning line. We'll find out. And then just in case, one of the more talented horses, if they are more talented, in fact, the number 1 and the number 7. The 1 is Actress, the 7 is Martini Glass. In case one of them get the job done and Sandy Surprise runs a great race but is only good enough to run second, I'll play $10 exact as back wheeling her, because I think there's a scenario where she just completely gets lost in the shuffle, but maybe she's not as good as Martini Glass, or she's not as good as Actress. But for me, the Azeri, fascinating race, nice stepping stone to get to next month's Apple Blossom, where, guess what, you're going to have them really tied on, because it sounds like Unique Bella is going to show up there. But I'll go with Sandy Surprise, $50 to win on her at 6-1 or greater, and also play $10 exactas with the 1 and 7 on top, with Sandy Surprise underneath. Let's move on to the 3rd and final race for this show, the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show. We'll go down to Gulfstream Park for the inside information. 7/8 of a mile on the main track at Gulfstream Park Saturday. This is the Grade 2 inside information. Fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. Only a field of 7 signed on in post position order with my value line on the far right side of the screen. The number 1 is Ivy Bell. First time going out for Todd Pletcher. You get Javier Castellano. This is a filly or a mare that I've always loved. I liked her a lot last year, played her in a number of spots. She outran her odds, particularly in the Chicago Handicap. I loved her that day, and she just wasn't quite as good as Finley's Lucky Charm. Now Pletcher gets her, and this is an interesting move because I think she's going to get bet on the fact that she usually runs her race, and now you get Pletcher at Gulfstream. For what it's worth, small sample size, but past 5 years, first after the trainer switch, 61 to 180 days in a graded stakes race. Todd Pletcher's only 0 for 7 with 1 hitting the board. So this is not necessarily in a very, very small sample size, I understand, but it's not really a positive move for Pletcher. I made her 4 to 1. If that was a little more of an inspiring number, maybe I'd make her shorter, but 4 to 1 for Ivy Bell. Number 2, Just Be Kind, won the Minaret most recently at Tampa Bay Downs. First off, a little bit of a layoff for Reed Baker. The race hasn't come back spectacular yet. Stormy Embrace won a handicap last weekend down at Tampa with a 93 buyer. And in fairness, she just didn't really run her race in the Minaret. So I do wonder if Stormy Embrace was more the normal Stormy Embrace, does Just Be Kind even win the Minaret? That's neither here nor there. I think Just Be Kind is up against it from a speed figure standpoint and a bit of a class standpoint. I made her 16 to 1. Number 3 is Moonlit Promise going out for Josie Carroll. Gary Boulanger listed as the rider. Most recent run I thought was very, very good in the Hurricane Birdie. I understand anyone that says the Hurricane Birdie was not a particularly strong race. Curlin's approval came back to earn a 79 buyer in her next start. So clearly some concerns about how good that race was. But the big thing for me is the race fell apart a little bit. She was one of the ones that was closest to the pace, and she stuck around. She was not totally embarrassed. She was a little bit late with the lead change. She swapped and turning for home, so a minor concern, but I thought she ran really well that day, 4 to 1 on my value line. Jordan's Henny was the winner of the Hurricane Birdie. I already mentioned that the race just completely sort of fell apart for one reason or another. She was the one that came with that last run. Very late with the lead change. It's always a concern for me. Highest last out buyer in the field with an 88 made her 4 to 1. Number 5 is Blue Collar going out for Eddie Keneally, Julian Leperoux. The only race on her page that is fast enough to win right now is the run 2 back and that non-winners of 2. Other than that, race has come back dreadful. The winner that day was Blue Collar. She came back and earned that 68 in the next start, the Wayward Last, going 2 turns at Tampa. But the 4th place finisher came back and earned a 24 buyer. To me, sit back and watch, 24 to 1. Another one of my favorites, Rich Mommy, the number 6 horse. Victor Barbosa Jr., you get Irad Ortiz Jr. I thought she ran well in the Hurricane Birdie. I liked her a lot in the Sugar Swirl. She owes me nothing at this point. I think she is a prime contender to win this race. Look at her overall record. I mean, it's hard to argue with 10 times in the money from 11 lifetime starts and 8 times in the exacta. She just shows up and runs. I think there could be another forward move here. I think she's interesting. Made her 4 to 1 as well. And the number 7, the outside runner, Minds and Magic for Vicky Oliver. Beaten as a short price in each of her past 3 starts, past 2 even worse, 4 to 5 odds on in the most recent start, and even money favorite in the start 2 starts back. I think she's good. I think she's better as a sort of underneath kind of horse, a little bit of a nibbler. I made her 9 to 1. My pick and my play in this race, the pick is Moonlight Promise. I thought she ran tremendously in that race. We're going to take a look at it right now. This was the replay of the Hurricane Birdie. Again, considering the race fell apart, she was the one closest to the pace, and she wasn't totally embarrassed, beaten by 3 lengths by some decent horses, no superstars. But I don't think any superstars are in this race either. I think she could work at a really nice trip in here because it doesn't look like there's a ton of pace signed on. If Boulanger can get her into the run early, I wonder if you get the opposite sort of race shape and the race flow as we had in that most recent run, the Hurricane Birdie, where it felt like the pace fell apart. I wonder if the pace holds up here and she can go on and get the job done. I will play $20 to win on her at 4 to 1 or greater, and I will also back her up in exactas with the number 1 horse, Ivy Bell, who, again, Pletcher Castellano, Gulfstream, probably a pretty good thing, but that formulator fact, small sample, gives me a little bit of cause for pause. I will also use the 6, Rich Mommy. So 1 in 6 over Moonlit Promise as far as saver exactas are concerned, but my big play in there, $20 to win on Moonlit Promise, the number 3, at odds of 4 to 1 or greater. And that is going to do it for this week's edition, the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show. Again, if you want to get your 3-year-old preps and you want to take a look at those videos, they will both be covered on Out of the Gate, which we will lead into momentarily. That would be the Rebel and the Jeff Ruby Stakes. If you want to take a look at the in-depth stakes previews, you can find those on video.drf.com as well as the Daily Racing Forms YouTube channel. If you've been watching this live on Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, you got live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Form social media pages. That would be on Twitter at DRF Inside Post, as well as the DRF Facebook page. If you listen to it podcast version, as most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. You want to follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Questions, comments, concerns, whatever it may be. Until we talk again in the recap edition, that will be up on Tuesday. It'll be on noon as far as DRF Live is concerned. We will go over all of these races. We will go over the 3-year-old preps. We will try to set the table going into next week. We get closer and closer to those final round of Derby preps of so important. 100 points to the winner, 50 points to the runner-up. So a lot of things going to be coming up here in the next handful of weeks as we get closer and closer. Don't look now. March Madness is going on. I'm sure as some of you are listening to this, there are games being played. As I'm recording this, the first game of the entire tournament is being played. So we're at that time. The Masters is only 2 weeks away. Got a lot of good things going on. It's spring. We're getting closer and closer. It may not feel like spring here in New England where we got 1.5 feet of snow on the ground, but we're getting closer and closer to the bigger and better things, particularly the Kentucky Derby. So if you've been watching this live, you've already checked out the DRF Players podcast. Those boys, Kinchin and Fornatale, they popped on at 11. And as we always do here on Friday, we'll lead into the latest edition of Out of the Gate with all the usual suspects, go over the 3-year-old preps, and we'll touch on the Santa Margarita. You also get some best bets, excuse me, and some horses to watch. So without further ado, we'll go into the latest edition of Out of the Gate until the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show. Best of luck this weekend. Talk soon.